Hello and welcome to A Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green. A new report by the Pew Forum shows Islam is the fastest growing religion and predicts that by the year 2050, there will be almost as many Muslims as Christians in the world. And Christians will still outnumber Muslims, but what does this mean for the world and how accurate are these predictions? Joining me with some insight is Dr. Alex McFarland, co-host of Explore the World. Hey, Alex.
Good morning, Lauren. It's good to be with you.
Well, what's your reaction to this Pew study?
Well, this is something that people who watch social trends and religious trends have been observing for a long time. I will say that it's largely due to birth rate. There have been, exceptionally high birth rates among Muslim nations and correspondingly declining birth rates in America and the West. So I'm not sure that I would agree that this is, conversion growth. It's more just natural birth growth. But it is an incentive for Christians in the West to not only evangelize, but procreate.
Well, I was actually just going to ask you that. I want to show you the poll, though. It says Christians now make up 31.4% today, and Muslims 23.2%. By the year 2050, Christians will still make up 31.4%, but Muslims will rise to 29.7%. And I mean, you actually basically said it. Does that mean we should be encouraging Christians to have more children?
We really should. Hey, there are two books that I want to reference. One is called How Civilizations Die by a man named Bradford Wilcox, and another, How the West Really Lost God by Mary Everstadt. How Civilizations Die, I'll have to think the author of that book. How the West Really Lost God is by Mary Everstadt and Bradford Wilcox, so I correct myself there. But both of these two books talk about how in industrialized nations and prosperous nations, birth rates seem to decline with prosperity. And children are seen as burdensome and, like in Japan right now, the median age is around 54. And How Civilizations Die is predicting that within the next 100 years, Japan is going to find itself in what they call demographic winter. And even if the Japanese people right now begin to have children, copiously, they're still at a very dangerous point because their civilization has not reached what sociologists call replacement rate. And a lot of this is due to 30 years ago in the late 80s, early 90s, Japan was very economically prosperous and family and child rearing was not a priority. Now, my point in sharing all that is this, that sociologists have noticed that in the Americas, as birth rates have declined, there are two groups where family, monogamy, child rearing has been affirmed, and that's been in evangelical Christians and conservative Jewish homes. Christian families and Jewish families have a higher than ordinary birth rate, and it's interesting how sociologists have looked at why maybe Jews and evangelicals value child rearing and family. And I would say, as a Christian, it's because of our shared belief in the Scriptures that affirms marriage, family, child rearing. The Bible says children are a gift from God.
Well, let's get to the other part of that, though. You're talking about evangelizing, and actually I want to point out that, Jesus did give his followers a mandate to spread the gospel, which means spread this faith about, his resurrection. Does that survey show that Christians are really not following that directive?
Well, it's been a challenge, and evangelism hasn't been the priority in the church that it should be, such that, we've got a couple of generations, really, of churches in America that have plateaued or are declining. And so I do think this year we've got our Truth for a New Generation conference, that our whole thrust this year is evangelism, that we need to rediscover an ethic of reaching lost people, the unevangelized, with the gospel.
Yeah, and then, of course, the other idea of that is this sort of encouraging people to have children. But, in this economy, how do you do that? How do you encourage young families to have, 2, 3, or 4 children?
Good question. For the Christian, life is a stewardship, and part of that is trusting God. I don't advocate doing things recklessly or irresponsibly, but we do need to trust God. And I think that Christian families need to understand that it's better to do life God's way. And God tells us, to be faithful to the wife of our youth. I think that, it's funny, I was just reading a study this morning that says married people have a greater degree of sexual satisfaction than do single people or, people that have not experienced a monogamous relationship. Mm-hmm. So in terms of marriage, life satisfaction, intimacy with one's spouse, in terms of financial prosperity, the data is clear that those that are heterosexual, monogamous, building families really do experience blessings in life. So we trust God and we do life His way.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Alex McFarland. Thanks for shedding light on some of this study. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Lauren. Thank you.